think there's probably literally a mathematical physics law somewhere of movie production that has been true for the last 100 years, that the easier it becomes and the more the bar to production is lowered, the bar to distribution goes up. In other words, when it's very, very hard to make movies, just managing to make one can almost guarantee you getting it out into the world. And there are still countries where that's potentially true, and or where the government takes more of a role in doing that. Here, as you guys will be coming out into a world completely unlike the world that these guys came out into, or that I did, or that Cassian did, where it's become almost a zero entry bar. I mean, you could do it on your phone. Theoretically, everybody's saying you can make a movie for free, and theoretically the chances of that ever being seen by anybody are like winning the lottery, as Cassian's saying. That is really critical. So it's key, number one, not to be seduced by the ease with which it is to somehow make something. I'd rather see somebody have written 5 scripts that never got made than made 5 little micro-budgeted movies, because the experience of those scripts is as relevant at every level of production, but the experience of making those movies may not be. The other things I'd say, which is really secondhand wisdom, would be, number one, what Roger Corman always said, which was the base of his whole career, is exactly what these guys said, and what Cassian was nodding sagely to, which is, don't compete, find the things that they aren't doing. In his case, that really was actually 2 things. It was genre movies that were at a real low in the studio system, and your youth pictures, what they used to call. He was in an era, which I think is actually strangely close to ours, where all the main leading men in particular, but the women too, especially the men, were over 40, and in many cases over 50 and over 60. They were still making movies with Cary Grant as the lead, and he's making love to a 25-year-old woman. And Roger's literally sitting in a theater noticing that the audience is all 15, and they don't want to see Grandpa save the world. So he really revolutionized things by saying, let's, actually make movies kind of by and for a youth segment, and also distribute Swedish movies that show a little flesh. All these things that couldn't get through. So yeah, number one, what they can't do because of their size or their reputation or other things, you can do. Number two, a producer I've worked with a lot starting out, Cody Chubb, a really lovely and brilliant guy, and Cody's motto, and I know he told me once, the old agent who said it to him, and I forget that man's name, but he just used to say, stay close to talent. Meaning, that find that person, find a writer you really believe in, a filmmaker, somebody, an actor, and stay close and have those personal relationships like these guys are talking about. Look at your classmates. That the best chance you're going to have for finding that script, if you're not yourself a writer, that's great, is going to be somebody in your class who's written one. The very first thing I did out of USC was simply a script I had read in class that I thought was terrific. And when I suddenly had an agent, I brought that script in and was just able to do something with it right away. Ultimately, I got fired by Sylvester Stallone before I got directed, which was probably a good blessing, yeah. But and it became the terrible movie Lockup. But yeah, you show your classmates is the other element of that. That is being close to them. And the final bit I would say is that, again, one of the great cliches of the 21st century about content being king is true, and never underestimate the value of an interesting book or short story or play. My motto right now is, it is infinitely easier to find something that has pleased someone and help that reach everyone than it is to create from scratch something that will please anyone. I believe to the core, and I say this even as a writer, that film is essentially an adaptive medium, and always has been. And the vast majority, obviously there are great films that are totally original, but the vast majority of great movies and such movies actually are adaptations. Even Casablanca, Wizard of Oz, and even ones we don't think of as being adaptations. So there's not only no shame in that, that is a smart thing to do. You don't have to have a lot of money to find an interesting novel, an interesting crime novel, an interesting science fiction novel, an interesting horror story, an interesting independent comic book, any number of things. And that will immediately give you a leg up, both because it has already successfully entertained somebody, and making the case for adapting it and taking it to the world is not as hard a case to make as it is something that you're saying, yes, no one's ever been entertained by this, but I guarantee you if we mount it, it's really going to be fun.
I think I have a unique perspective at this panel because I'm not nearly as successful as they are. I mean, it's just how it is. I am probably the closest to film students because I actually still believe I'm in my film school right now. I'm still learning the process along the way, and yes, it's all going very well for me, I think, and I can tell you what I think works for me, but it's going to be a different perspective than these guys. What I can say, in echoing some of their sentiments, is first of all, live cheap. Like, cut off any frills you have, because if you're going to be an independent producer, as you're looking at line items in the budget, if you believe in the project, the first line item to go is your rate. Like, if you believe in a project, you're gonna get rid of it and you're gonna do everything you can to make that film. And so you need to be able to get by on life and keep working. And the other thing you need to be able to do is work on a lot of projects. Because like he said, it's all relationships. There's no shortage of directors out there and writers out there who need help producing their projects. Like, everybody who's ever directed a thing feels like they're in it alone, and they want that guy, even if he's not experienced, to be like, yeah, I'll help you do that. I'll just figure out how to make calls. I'll be there for you. And that's what you need to do. You need to put yourself out there. You need to get those relationships, and you'll figure out who you work with. You'll figure out, how to make those phone calls. And it's the 10,000 hour rule. You just have to keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. And you'll all grow together, and you'll make projects together, and then something you'll do will be seen by somebody, and you'll all move up together, and they'll take you along the way because it was a good experience. But the other thing I'll say, from my perspective, in terms of, yes, just start calling yourself a producer, start producing. But the type of content I would suggest is, I personally believe the world of short films is not the world it was even 5 years ago, even 4 years ago. There used to be a world where you could make a short film, went to a festival, agents saw it, they called you. There's no reason for an agent to go to a short film festival. They have the internet, and the internet tells them how many people watched it and how many people liked it. And like, that's the bottom line. So there's really, in my opinion, you need to make short content. You have to, you can't make full features as you're first starting out. And so what you can do is you can go the route of making web content, web series, and you can learn how to tell episodes and an arc over a season, and you could have the potential of monetizing it. It's very difficult, but if you can monetize that, if you can prove an audience, then it can get bigger recognition, it can get a channel, and you can potentially generate revenue. But I haven't seen that done, so I wouldn't suggest that. But the strength of doing a short film is pair it with a bigger project. And I'm not saying do a short version of your feature, but do a short film that's in the world of your feature. Have a feature script. Because if you do something good and people want it, they want to know what's next, they want to know what's with it. And what that will do, the most important thing it will do, is it will get talent attached. Because like these guys said, like nobody's going to make a film or finance a film. Even your friends and family, they want to know what actors are attached. And kind of the quickest way to get an actor to read a script is to get them to watch a 5-minute movie first, and they're like, oh, there's a cool director with a cool voice. Yeah, sure, now I'll take the 2 hours to read this script. And it's all about getting those steps in the doors, and the first thing is make something quick, easy, specific, shows you can tell a story, shows you have a voice as a director, and I guess as a producer, and help the directors do that, and help them go all the way. And when they get that package together and they're going and they're saying, okay, who do you want on your team? They'll call you back. So.